Welcome back to the channel The Coin Empire. Today we are diving into one of the most shocking and mysterious stories in the world of coin collecting, the unbelievable tale of a 1964 1-cent USA coin that has been whispered about in collector circles as being worth an astonishing $88 million because of its rare errors, unusual minting mistakes, and extraordinary historical possibilities that transform an ordinary penny into a legend of numismatics. And before you dismiss this as impossible, stay with me, because the deeper you go into the details of how coins are made, how errors occur, and how rarity multiplies value, the more you begin to understand how a single cent struck in 1964 could theoretically command a price that rivals the most famous treasures in the world. And it all begins with understanding the historical context of 1964. A year when the United States Mint was under tremendous pressure due to coin shortages, rising silver prices, and a booming economy that demanded more circulating currency than ever before. And although the 1-cent coin was composed primarily of copper and not silver, the overall strain on production created an environment where mistakes were more likely to happen, dies were overused, quality control sometimes slipped, and experimental processes occasionally overlapped with standard production, creating the perfect storm for a rare and valuable error coin to be born. Now imagine a 1964 penny struck not just with a simple off-center error or a minor die crack, but with a combination of extraordinary minting anomalies that almost never occur together, such as being struck on the wrong planchet, possibly even a transitional metal intended for experimental testing, combined with a dramatic double die obverse where the date and lettering show clear and bold doubling visible to the naked eye, along with a rare repunched mint mark variation, and then topped off with a full brockage reverse impression caused by a previously struck coin sticking to the die and imprinting its mirror image onto the next blank planchet. And if that were not enough, imagine that this coin was also struck with unusually high pressure from freshly polished dies, giving it razor-sharp details far superior to typical circulation strikes, making it both an error coin and a condition rarity of the highest level. And when collectors evaluate value, they look at rarity, demand, historical importance, and uniqueness, and a coin that combines multiple major error types into a single specimen could easily become one of a kind. And in the coin market, uniqueness is everything, because while there may be thousands of minor error pennies from 1964, there may be only one known example with a specific combination of dramatic double die features, wrong metal composition, and full brockage strike. And when a coin is truly unique, it stops being just currency and becomes a museum-caliber artifact, the kind of piece that elite collectors compete for regardless of price, especially if metallurgical analysis were to reveal that the coin was accidentally struck on a planchet intended for a different denomination, or even struck on an experimental alloy never officially released to the public. Because in 1964 the Mint was quietly researching metal compositions due to rising copper costs and the upcoming shift away from silver coinage in 1965, and any accidental release of a test planchet into circulation would represent a monumental mint mistake, adding layers of intrigue and government history to the coin's story. And provenance plays a massive role in driving value toward astronomical levels. So imagine that this 1964 penny was discovered decades later in an old bank roll stored away by a former Mint employee, or found in a sealed estate collection with documentation linking it directly to the Philadelphia Mint facility during a transitional testing period. That documentation alone could multiply its value beyond imagination, because collectors are not only buying metal but buying a story, a verified narrative that connects the coin to a pivotal moment in American minting history. And then consider condition, because if this coin somehow escaped circulation entirely and remained in pristine mint state condition, graded at the absolute top of the scale, with blazing red luster and no visible wear, its eye appeal would be unmatched. And when extreme rarity meets flawless preservation, the market response can become explosive, as wealthy collectors, investors, and even institutions see it as a once-in-a-lifetime acquisition opportunity. And we have seen in history how single coins have shattered records simply because two determined buyers refused to back down at auction, pushing prices into territory that once seemed absurd. And an $88 million valuation might sound unbelievable, but in a competitive private sale between billionaires seeking the rarest known American coin error, ever documented, the final number becomes less about face value and more about prestige, legacy, and exclusivity, and the 1964 date adds additional fascination because it represents the final year before massive changes in U.S. coinage composition took place, meaning any strange anomaly from that year sits at a crossroads between old and new eras of minting. And collectors love transitional pieces because they symbolize change, uncertainty, and experimentation, and if this particular penny also displayed a dramatic die clash where the obverse and reverse designs collided without a planchet between them, leaving ghostly outlines of Lincoln's profile on the reverse side, it would add yet another major error category to its resume, and the stacking of errors is what drives theoretical value into the stratosphere. Because while one error might make a coin worth thousands, and two errors might elevate it to hundreds of thousands, the presence of 4 or 5 dramatic, clearly visible, and well-documented mint mistakes on a single coin can make it essentially irreplaceable, and irreplaceable items command whatever price the market will bear, especially when backed by third-party authentication, scientific testing, and expert consensus verifying its legitimacy beyond doubt. And imagine the buzz within the numismatic community if such a coin were unveiled at a major convention. Displayed under glass with experts confirming its authenticity, collectors crowding around to glimpse what could be the most spectacular Lincoln cent ever discovered, media outlets reporting on the mysterious penny valued at $88 million, and suddenly this tiny copper coin becomes a global sensation, not because of its size but because of its story, its rarity, and the improbable chain of minting accidents that gave it life. And the psychology of collecting plays a powerful role here because humans are naturally drawn to extremes, the biggest, the rarest, the only known example, and when you combine that psychology with the historical weight of U.S. coinage and the universal recognition of the Lincoln cent design, you create the perfect storm for a record-breaking sale. And let us not forget the possibility of a dramatic misalignment error where the obverse and reverse are rotated far beyond normal tolerance, adding yet another layer of visual shock to the coin, making it instantly recognizable even to a casual observer, and perhaps even a partial collar strike giving it an unusual edge appearance that defies conventional expectations, each anomaly stacking upon the last like layers of rarity building toward an almost mythical status. And then imagine advanced spectrographic testing revealing trace elements in the alloy that match experimental batches recorded in internal mint archives from 1964 but never officially released, effectively proving that this penny was never meant to leave the testing floor, turning it into a surviving relic of a secretive moment in mint experimentation. And that type of discovery would not only electrify collectors but also historians, as it would offer tangible evidence of the behind-the-scenes processes that shaped American coinage during a time of economic transition. And when rarity crosses into historical revelation, value becomes almost limitless, because now the coin is not just collectible but academically significant. And institutions may compete alongside private collectors to secure it, driving bids higher and higher until the final hammer price reflects not just metal and error but importance and legacy. And think about the narrative power of owning the only known 1964 penny struck on a wrong experimental planchet with a bold double die obverse, full brockage reverse, dramatic die clash marks, repunched mint mark, misaligned rotation, partial collar strike, and pristine mint state preservation. It reads like a checklist of every major mint era category combined into one impossible coin, and impossibility is exactly what fuels 8-figure valuations, because the more improbable the circumstances, the more captivating the story becomes, and collectors at the highest level are not simply filling albums, they are curating history, building private museums, competing for trophies that no one else can own. And when a coin reaches that level, it transcends traditional pricing guides and enters a realm where value is defined by desire and competition rather than comparables. And although most 1964 pennies are worth only face value or a small premium in high grade, the existence of even one specimen with such extraordinary attributes would rewrite the narrative for that year entirely. Next, 1972 D1 cent coin. Today we are stepping into one of the most talked about and mind-bending stories in modern American numismatics, the astonishing legend of the 1972 D1 cent USA coin that has been rumored, debated, and analyzed as a theoretical $85 million penny because of a perfect storm of minting errors, mechanical mistakes, historical timing, and extraordinary possibilities that together transform an everyday Lincoln cent into a once-in-a-lifetime artifact. And to truly understand how such an unbelievable valuation could even be imagined, we must slow down and journey through the era, the minting process, the psychology of collectors, and the rare era combinations that elevate a simple copper coin into the realm of global treasure, because value in the coin world is not created by age alone or metal content alone but by rarity multiplied by demand and magnified by story. And the year 1972 sits at a fascinating crossroads in United States coinage history, a time when the nation was adjusting to post-silver coinage realities, rising inflation, heavy coin circulation, and massive production demands placed on the United States Mint, and within that environment the Denver Mint facility was striking enormous quantities of Lincoln cents at relentless speed, which is precisely the kind of environment where dramatic and historically important errors can occur. And the 1972 D-cent already holds legendary status among collectors because of its famous doubled die obverse varieties. But what we are discussing here goes far beyond the standard known examples and enters the realm of extreme rarity and hypothetical uniqueness, where a single coin may combine multiple major errors in a way that has never been officially documented, and that is where the $85 million valuation begins to make sense in theory. Because when a coin becomes the only known example of its kind, price guides become irrelevant, and the market is driven entirely by competition among elite collectors and institutions. Now imagine a 1972 D penny struck with an ultra-dramatic double die obverse far stronger than the already famous varieties, where the date shows massive separation, the word liberty appears clearly doubled with strong notching, and the motto displays bold overlapping impressions visible without magnification, signaling a misalignment during the die creation process itself rather than a minor strike anomaly. And then imagine that this same coin was also struck on a wrong planchet, possibly an experimental alloy or a leftover foreign blank that accidentally entered the production line, resulting in a coin with an abnormal weight, unusual color, and unique metallic signature confirmed by laboratory analysis. And such wrong planchet errors alone can command enormous premiums, but when paired with a major double die they become exponentially rarer. And rarity compounds value in a non-linear way, meaning two rare errors together do not simply double value but can multiply it by orders of magnitude. And now add to that the possibility of a full blockage reverse, where a previously struck coin adhered to the die and impressed its mirror image onto the next planchet, creating a ghostly reverse Lincoln portrait on the back of the coin, a visually stunning and extremely rare error that instantly captures attention even from non-collectors. And visual drama is a critical factor in high-end valuations because coins that immediately communicate rarity without explanation are the ones that become icons, and the hypothetical 1972 D penny does not stop there, because during periods of heavy die use, dies can clash violently when no planchet is present, leaving impressions of the obverse design on the reverse and vice versa. And if this coin also exhibited strong die clash marks with clear outlines of Lincoln's profile appearing beneath the memorial design, it would add yet another major category of mint error to its profile, stacking rarity upon rarity like layers of historical accident. And collectors understand that while individual errors can sometimes be duplicated, the exact combination of multiple dramatic errors occurring on a single coin is often mathematically improbable to the point of near impossibility. And impossibility is precisely what drives prices into eight-figure territory. Because the fewer comparable items that exist, the more freedom the market has to define value, and then consider strike quality. Because many error coins suffer from weak strikes or circulation wear. But imagine if this 1972 D-cent somehow escaped circulation entirely and retained blazing original red luster, sharp details, and pristine surfaces free from contact marks, placing it at the absolute top of the grading scale. And condition rarity layered on top of mechanical error rarity creates a situation where demand vastly outstrips supply. Because supply is limited to one, and when supply is one, price is determined by desire, and desire among elite collectors is fueled by prestige, legacy, and the thrill of owning something no one else on earth can own. and provenance becomes the next multiplier. Because imagine this coin being traced back to a sealed bank bag or an estate collection belonging to a former Denver Mint employee, complete with documentation that places the coin within the facility during a specific production run known for equipment malfunctions or experimental adjustments, and documentation transforms speculation into historical evidence, which in turn transforms curiosity into confidence, and confidence is essential when prices reach tens of millions of dollars, because buyers at that level demand certainty. And scientific analysis could further elevate the coin's status by revealing trace elements in the alloy that match internal mint records of experimental compositions tested during the early 1970s when copper costs were volatile and alternative materials were quietly evaluated. And if such analysis confirmed that the coin was struck on a non-standard planchet never intended for public release, the coin would cross from collectible into historical artifact, attracting interest not only from private collectors but also from museums and academic institutions. And institutional interest introduces new bidders with deep pockets and long-term perspectives, pushing prices higher as ownership becomes a matter of cultural stewardship rather than personal collection. And the psychology of high-end collecting must not be underestimated, because at the highest level collectors are not merely buying objects, they are buying immortality, the chance to be associated forever with the discovery and preservation of something extraordinary, and a one-of-a-kind 1972 descent combining a massive double-die obverse, wrong planchet composition, full brockage reverse, dramatic die clashes, possible off-center strike characteristics, and perfect mint state. Preservation would instantly become one of the most famous American coins ever known, discussed in books, studied in universities, and displayed as a symbol of how human error and mechanical imperfection can create beauty and value far beyond intention. And when such fame enters the equation, value accelerates because the coin becomes a cultural reference point, a story repeated and retold, inspiring new generations of collectors. And we have seen throughout history how iconic coins shatter expectations, because once a coin becomes the best known example of something, it stops being compared to others and starts defining its own category, and the $85 million figure begins to look less like fantasy and more like a reflection of what happens when rarity, story, condition, and demand converge at the absolute peak. And even the date 1972 plays a role because it is already ingrained in collector consciousness due to the famous double-die varieties, meaning the year itself carries a mystique that amplifies interest, and when collectors hear 1972D their attention sharpens instantly, making it easier for an extraordinary specimen from that year to capture imagination and ignite bidding wars. And consider also the possibility of a misaligned die strike where the obverse and reverse are rotated beyond acceptable tolerance, creating a visually jarring orientation that further distinguishes the coin from standard issues, and perhaps even evidence of a partial collar strike leaving an unusually shaped edge, adding tactile uniqueness to visual rarity. And every additional anomaly increases the coin's narrative richness, because stories sell coins just as much as metal and numbers, and when a coin tells a story of chaos on the mint floor, of machines slightly out of sync, of dies clashing and planchets wandering where they should not be, it becomes a symbol of the human element behind industrial production, and that symbolism resonates deeply with collectors who appreciate the imperfections that make each artifact unique. And the market for ultra-rare coins operates on a global scale, meaning buyers are not limited to one country or culture, and a legendary American-era coin can attract interest from international collectors who view it as a piece of American history and innovation, further expanding the pool of potential buyers and intensifying competition. And competition is the final ingredient that transforms high value into record-breaking value, because when two or more determined bidders refuse to lose, price becomes secondary to victory. Next, 1996 1-cent coin. Today we are uncovering an unbelievable modern coin story that sounds almost impossible at first but becomes fascinating when you understand the deeper layers behind minting errors, rarity, and collector psychology. Because we are talking about a 1996 1-cent USA coin that has been imagined and discussed as being worth an astonishing $80 million due to a breathtaking combination of errors, production mistakes, historical timing, and one-of-a-kind characteristics that could transform an ordinary Lincoln cent into one of the most valuable coins ever known, and to truly understand how a penny from 1996 could even enter the conversation of eight-figure valuations, we must begin with the environment in which it was created. During the mid-1990s, the United States Mint was producing billions of Lincoln cents annually at high-speed facilities including the Denver Mint. And when production is pushed to extreme levels, even the most advanced quality control systems cannot prevent every anomaly, and sometimes in rare moments multiple mechanical failures, die preparation mistakes, and planchet mix-ups align in a way that creates something extraordinary. And the 1996 cent is particularly interesting because 1996 marked the 90th anniversary of the Lincoln cent design, first introduced in 1909. Meaning the coin carries symbolic importance even before errors are considered, and collectors already pay attention to anniversary years, so if a dramatic error were discovered on a 1996 cent, it would instantly attract heightened interest. Now imagine that this particular coin was struck with a massive doubled die obverse created during the die hubbing process, not a minor machine doubling but a true doubled die where the date 1996 shows bold separation. The word Liberty displays strong notching on each letter, and the motto "I in God We Trust" appears clearly overlapped with dramatic visual impact. Such an error would already place the coin in elite territory because true doubled dies are created at the die manufacturing stage and are far rarer than strike doubling. But what if that was only the beginning? Because the $80 million valuation becomes conceivable when multiple major error types exist on the same single coin. And imagine that this doubled die 1996 penny was accidentally struck on a wrong planchet. Perhaps a copper nickel-clad blank intended for a dime, or a foreign coin planchet mistakenly mixed into the supply, giving the coin an unusual silver tone or an abnormal weight confirmed by laboratory testing. Wrong planchet errors are rare by themselves, but when combined with a major doubled die they become exponentially rarer because the statistical probability of both occurring together shrinks dramatically. And now add to that the possibility of a dramatic off-center strike of perhaps 20 or 30%, while still retaining the full date and mint mark, creating a visually striking crescent shape that instantly signals uniqueness. And collectors are drawn to visual drama because coins that look obviously different command more attention at auction. And then consider the potential for a full blockage reverse where a previously struck cent adhered to the die and transferred a mirror image of Lincoln's profile onto the reverse of the next planchet, resulting in a ghostly incuse portrait dominating the back of the coin. Blockage errors are scarce and highly desirable, and the odds of one occurring on a coin that is already a doubled die struck on the wrong planchet are almost unimaginable. And the layering of errors is what drives theoretical values into the tens of millions, because when a coin becomes the only known specimen with a specific combination of dramatic anomalies, it transcends normal pricing structures, and value becomes determined by desire rather than comparison. And desire among elite collectors is fueled by exclusivity, prestige, and the opportunity to own something that no one else can obtain. And condition plays a massive role in pushing valuations even higher, because many era coins enter circulation and suffer wear. But imagine if this 1996 cent somehow escaped into a sealed bankroll and remained untouched for decades, preserving blazing original mint red surfaces, razor-sharp details, and flawless luster, grading at the very top of the mint state scale. And when absolute condition rarity is combined with extreme mechanical rarity, the result is a coin that satisfies both error specialists and condition purists simultaneously, expanding the pool of potential buyers. And provenance adds yet another layer of value, because suppose the coin could be traced back to a specific production batch at the Denver Mint during a documented equipment malfunction or die replacement period, with internal records supporting unusual activity on that day. And documentation transforms speculation into credible narrative, which increases buyer confidence at the highest price levels, and scientific analysis could further elevate the coin's mystique if metallurgical testing revealed trace elements inconsistent with standard 1996 cent composition, suggesting it was struck on an experimental alloy planchet being evaluated quietly for cost reduction purposes. And while most experimental pieces are destroyed before leaving mint facilities, history shows that occasional pieces escape into circulation by accident, and when they do, they become legendary because they represent unintended survivors of internal experimentation, and a confirmed experimental planchet error from 1996 would carry historical importance beyond simple collecting because it would offer insight into late 20th century mint research and economic considerations, and historical significance often attracts institutional interest from museums and foundations. And when institutions enter bidding competitions, prices can escalate beyond traditional collector budgets, and the psychology of eight-figure coin sales must be understood as well, because at that level buyers are not motivated solely by investment return but by legacy, reputation, and the desire to be permanently associated with a discovery of global importance, and owning the only known 1996 descent with a massive double-die obverse, wrong planchet composition, dramatic off-center strike, full brockage reverse, possible die clashes, and pristine mint state preservation would place the owner into numismatic history. Books and coins that reach that level become icons referenced in publications, displayed at major conventions, and studied by experts for generations, and the market for ultra-rare coins is international, meaning wealthy collectors from around the world may compete for a piece of American minting history, further intensifying bidding pressure. And we have seen throughout numismatic history how once a coin gains fame and publicity, its value can accelerate rapidly because awareness expands. Demand against the supply of one creates extraordinary outcomes, and consider also the possibility of a rotated die error where the reverse design is misaligned by a significant degree relative to the obverse, adding another visible anomaly that makes the coin instantly recognizable, and perhaps even a partial collar strike leaving the edge irregular and uniquely shaped. Each additional feature reinforcing the narrative that this is not merely an error coin but a convergence of rare mechanical events unlikely ever to be repeated, and improbability is at the heart of extreme valuations because the more unlikely an event the more special its surviving evidence becomes, and the 1996 descent also benefits from being modern enough that detailed mint records, advanced analytical techniques, and high-resolution imaging can thoroughly document and authenticate its anomalies, reducing doubts that sometimes affect older coins, and confidence in authenticity is essential when discussing numbers like $80 million, because serious buyers demand certainty supported by data, and when third-party grading services certify a coin as unique and historically significant, it solidifies market trust, and trust enables high-value transactions, and the symbolic power of a penny being worth $80 million also captures public imagination, creating media attention and cultural fascination that further amplify its perceived importance, and public fascination can indirectly influence market value by increasing prestige, and prestige is a currency of its own among elite collectors, and while the overwhelming majority of 1996 pennies remain worth only 1 cent, the theoretical existence of a single extraordinary specimen reminds us that rarity does not follow simple rules, it follows probability and accident. And sometimes probability aligns in extraordinary ways, and collectors continue to search through rolls and collections precisely because of stories like this, because the possibility of discovering something unprecedented keeps the hobby alive and vibrant, and even if such a coin were never to sell publicly for $80 million, the framework explaining how it could reach that valuation reveals the intricate relationship between minting mechanics, historical context, documentation, condition, uniqueness, and human desire. And it shows that value is not inherent in metal alone but in narrative and scarcity, and here at the Coin Empire we explore these extraordinary possibilities not just to imagine wealth but to understand the fascinating complexity behind coin production and error formation. Last 1991 cent coin. Today we are diving into one of the most astonishing modern coin legends ever imagined, the story of a 1991 cent USA coin that has been discussed as having a staggering potential value of $79 million because of an extraordinary chain of minting errors, mechanical mistakes, rare production anomalies, and historical circumstances that together could transform an ordinary Lincoln cent into one of the most valuable coins on the planet. And before anyone dismisses that idea as impossible, it is important to understand how coin value is truly created, because in the world of numismatics price is driven by rarity, demand, uniqueness, historical importance, condition, documentation, and the powerful psychology of collectors competing for ownership of something that may never appear again, and the year 1990 represents an interesting moment in United States coin production. A time when billions of Lincoln cents were being struck at high-speed facilities operated by the United States Mint, and whenever production runs at such enormous scale, even the most advanced quality control systems can experience rare breakdowns, die preparation mistakes can slip through inspection, planchets can be misfed or mixed, and under very specific circumstances multiple rare errors can converge on a single coin, creating something so improbable that it stands alone in the entire mintage. And that is precisely where the possibility of a $79,001,990 cent begins, because imagine a coin struck during a brief window of die misalignment in which a true double die obverse was created at the hubbing stage, not a minor strike doubling but a dramatic and unmistakable doubling where the date 1990 shows bold separation on all 4 digits. The word Liberty exhibits heavy notching on each letter, and the motto "I in God We Trust" appears clearly overlapped with strong shadowing visible without magnification. Such double dies are born when the die itself receives multiple misaligned impressions during manufacture, making every coin struck from it carry the same distinctive doubling. But what elevates this scenario beyond known varieties is the possibility that only a handful of strikes were made before the die was pulled from service, meaning perhaps only 1 or 2 coins survived into circulation, and rarity at that level is extraordinary. But now layer onto that the possibility that this same coin was struck on a transitional or wrong planchet, because around that period the composition of the cent was copper-plated zinc, and if by accident a leftover bronze planchet from earlier testing or an experimental alloy blank intended for evaluation was fed into the press, the resulting coin would display unusual weight, magnetic properties, and color, confirmed by metallurgical analysis, and wrong planchet errors are already highly desirable. But when paired with a major double die, they create a compound rarity that shrinks the field of comparable coins to zero, and the stacking of errors is critical in understanding astronomical valuations. Because the probability of one major error is low, the probability of 2 occurring together is dramatically lower, and the probability of 3 or 4 coexisting on a single coin approaches statistical impossibility. And impossibility fuels value because collectors crave the singular and the irreplaceable. And imagine further that this 1990 cent also displays a full brockage reverse where a previously struck coin adhered to the die and impressed a mirrored image of Lincoln's portrait into the back of the next planchet, creating a visually dramatic and instantly recognizable error that even a non-collector would notice immediately. And visual impact cannot be underestimated because coins that communicate rarity at a glance command stronger bidding competition. And then consider the addition of a dramatic off-center strike, perhaps 15 to 25% misaligned while still retaining the full date and mint area, giving the coin a crescent-shaped blank space that adds to its unique appearance, and perhaps even evidence of a die clash where elements of the obverse design appear faintly impressed onto the reverse field due to the dies striking together without a planchet between them, adding another category of mint mistake to the coin's profile. And if all of these errors were present simultaneously on a coin preserved in flawless mint state condition with blazing original red luster, sharp detail, and no signs of circulation wear, the coin would represent the pinnacle of both error collecting and condition collecting at the same time, and that dual appeal expands the pool of potential buyers from specialists to general high-end collectors and investors, and when supply equals 1 and demand includes multiple wealthy participants, price becomes a matter of competitive desire rather than catalog value, and provenance could elevate the coin even further. Because imagine that it was discovered in a sealed Federal Reserve roll stored away in the early 1990s and later authenticated by multiple third-party grading services with detailed documentation linking it to a specific production batch at a mint facility during a documented equipment malfunction, and documentation transforms a rare object into a verified historical artifact, reducing skepticism and increasing buyer confidence. And when prices enter 8-figure territory, confidence is everything, because elite buyers require authentication backed by scientific testing, historical records, and expert consensus, An advanced spectrographic analysis might reveal unusual trace elements in the plating or core composition inconsistent with standard 1990 cent production, suggesting the planchet originated from a limited experimental batch. And experimental planchets that escape into circulation are among the most coveted categories in numismatics because they represent unintended survivors of internal testing never meant for public release, and historical significance adds a narrative layer that amplifies value, because the coin becomes evidence of a behind-the-scenes moment in mint experimentation, and museums or academic institutions might express interest in acquiring such a piece for research and display, introducing institutional bidders into the equation. And when institutions compete with private collectors, the financial ceiling rises dramatically, and the psychology behind $79 million must also be considered, because at that level the buyer is not simply purchasing a coin but securing a legacy, a permanent place in numismatic history, the prestige of being associated with the discovery and ownership of the most extraordinary 1990 cent ever known, and coins that achieve iconic status often become reference points in books, exhibits, and media stories, further increasing their fame and desirability, and fame itself can influence value by expanding global awareness, drawing interest from collectors beyond national borders, and turning a small copper coin into an international symbol of rarity. And the 1990 date benefits from being modern enough that mint records, production data, and analytical tools can thoroughly examine and authenticate anomalies, minimizing uncertainty and reinforcing legitimacy. And legitimacy at extreme values is essential, because without trust no transaction can occur at such magnitude, and consider also the possibility of a rotated die error where the reverse design is significantly misaligned relative to the obverse, creating yet another distinctive feature that separates the coin from ordinary examples, and perhaps even a partial collar strike leaving the edge irregular and uniquely shaped, adding tactile difference to visual drama, and every additional anomaly compounds the narrative of improbability. And improbability is what transforms common metal into extraordinary treasure, because value in numismatics is the intersection of accident and survival, and the more unlikely that intersection the more powerful the story becomes, and stories are the lifeblood of high-end collecting, because collectors remember and compete for the coins with the most compelling tales, and the idea that a humble 1991 cent coin could embody a rare doubled die, wrong experimental planchet, full brockage reverse, dramatic off-center strike, die clash marks, rotated dies partial collar strike, pristine mint state condition, and documented provenance creates a checklist of nearly every major mint era category combined into one impossible specimen. And when a coin becomes impossible, it becomes priceless until the market defines its price through competition. And if two determined billionaires or major institutions decided that owning this singular artifact was worth any cost, $79 million becomes a reflection of desire rather than intrinsic metal content. And although the vast majority of 1990 cents are worth exactly 1 cent, the theoretical existence of one extraordinary specimen valued at $79 million reminds us that rarity can hide within ordinary circulation, waiting to be discovered by someone knowledgeable enough to recognize its significance. And this possibility fuels the passion of collectors searching through bank rolls, estate sales, and old jars of change, because history has shown that unexpected treasures sometimes appear where least expected, and even if such a coin were never to sell publicly for that exact figure,